Hi, this is Larry Sabila from Eastern Washington State University. Let's take a look at Spokane Historical and how we add content to this or to any Curatescape platform. I'll go ahead and share screen here. So here's Spokane Historical. This is my baby. I tell students we've got over 700 place-based stories about local and regional history here. If we zoomed out, you could see the full magnificence of it. What I'm interested in right now, I'm going to go into one of these stories so we can look at an example of how it's put together. If you're at this point, I assume you've already created content for Spokane Historical. You've written your story, you've selected your images, you've written captions and stuff. This video is just about uploading that stuff and making sure it looks right on the web. So if we look here in downtown Spokane, we find, here's a story. John R. Monahan statue, martyr to an obscure war. Let me point out what the elements are of a Curatescape story, and then we'll go from there and talk about how to load them. So there's a title of our story. There's a subtitle, Killed by Alfred Thayer Mahan. What's that about? There's an author credit sometimes, and I've chosen this one because it illustrates how you can have multiple authors or some additional credits. There's what's called a lead, L-E-D-E. You've seen this in magazines and elsewhere. A lead is a few more sentences to sort of draw the reader in. It's a second chance to set the hook. Then there's a story. This one's rather too long. And then there are images. If we go down to the bottom, you can see images. Oops, there's no title for this one. That was sloppy work on my part. Anyway, there's images that are loaded up. And in this case, there's even a little bit of audio. There's also, and this is important, this is location-based storytelling. There's where the story occurs on a map. Well, how do you get that all there? Well, if you're creating a story, jump to another screen here. Make sure that one's gone. If you're creating a story in Spokane Historical, first you'll log in and you'll see the dashboard. It'll look something very like this. You'll go over to items. And I go back and forth with the language here. Sometimes I call these usually stories. I've been urged by a former student to call these exhibits because they kind of are like little museum exhibits. Plus that looks better on students' resumes. So mostly I'm calling them exhibits now. The exhibits, stories, all the same. But once we get here, they are called items. So if you click on items, you'll see, well, you'll probably see nothing if you're a student. You don't have the same permission levels I do. But you'll click here on add an item to begin adding your story. So upper left-hand corner. And that'll bring you to this page, Dublin Core, and so on. And we're going to go ahead and click add item. That brings us back to the browse items page, and then we'll go ahead and edit. And there we go. You might come to a screen where it says to choose which type of item. I'm not quite sure why we didn't see that. And if it does, you'll pull down on the menu and you'll choose Curatescape Story. It's highlighted in bright yellow. It's at the bottom. You can't miss it. So if we look here, there are 5 tabs across the top, and these are navigational tabs. There's Dublin Core, item type metadata, files, tags, which we don't use in Spokane Historical, your Curatescape project may, and map. And each of these, except for tags, is a place where you included important information. So first, let's take a look at Dublin Core. And I'm going over here to the actual John R. Monahan story, so you can see how that information looked in its sort of raw form. So there's a place to put your title on this page, and there's a place for creator. Unfortunately, there are a number of fields that appear in the software that we don't actually use. You just skip them over. I'll inform you of those in this video. The first of those is subject. We don't really do that. So your title and the creator right here. The next tab is item type metadata, and most of your text goes here. There's a place, so here's where the item type is. It says Curatescape Story. There's a place for your subtitle, a place for your lead, and a place for your story. Before you get to this point, you should have edited your story pretty carefully. It's much better, easier to do it in Google Doc or Word or somewhere like that. You've probably peer reviewed it with your fellow students. Your professors looked it over and said, this looks pretty good. Go ahead and upload it. Curatescape, you can definitely edit things after you put them up, but you're better off editing beforehand. So you're probably copying and pasting this. One word of warning, and this is important. Do not copy and paste directly from Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word has some unconventional ways of coding some characters, including smart quotes and other things. And if you copy and paste from Microsoft Word document, it will look fine on this screen. But when you go to publish to the web, you'll end up with some weird and funky formatting. If you wrote your story in Microsoft Word, no problem. If you paste it from Word into any other program before you come here, you'll be fine. So copy that Microsoft Word document, paste it into a Google Doc. Google Docs knows about Microsoft's hijinks and it fixes the unconventional coding. And then you haven't to do anything. And then you just copy it again off of the Google Doc or off an email or off WordPad. I mean, really almost anything will work. Just don't paste directly from Microsoft Word. Got that? So here, getting back to this screen, you have a place for the subtitle, a place for the lead, and a place for the story. Sponsor we don't usually use, but sometimes we work in Spokane Historical in conjunction with the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture or another organization, so sponsor may be used. Factoid we don't use in Spokane Historical. Related resources, this is where your bibliography goes. I created a citation guide. If you're in one of my classes, you already have access to that. Basically, we use a modified form of Chicago or Turabian citation. One thing to say here about your bibliography, related resources, and that's each item in the bibliography needs its own box to live in. When you open this up, there'll be just one box. So put your first item in your bibliography there, then click this box, add input. And if you see here, add input, we opened up another box. We don't use the rest of this, except that I want to point out this access information down here. If you're talking about something that's on private property, this might be a good place to note. So that's probably the most complicated of our tabs. That's the item type metadata. Files is where you load your photographs. And you can, well, you'll see, you've all, I think, uploaded things to the web where it says go find the file, you go load the photograph up. Remember, there are some formatting requirements here. For an image to look good on the web, on Spokane Historical or another Curatescape platform, it should be no less than 800 pixels across the long side. If you're not sure how to figure that out, Google it. How do I find out how many pixels a photograph is? You know, there'll be different methods for Macs and PCs, but it's pretty simple. So at least 800, our sweet spot is 1200. If it gets much above 1200, it's probably too large. It'll create some lag and things with people using the website. So go ahead and resize your photograph to bring it down to 1200 pixels on the long side. Again, there's lots of tools for doing it. Google it. You can do it. It's easy. So you load your pictures up here. Once your picture is up, you can go to edit. By the way, I should have said this at the beginning, save changes periodically in here. This software does not autosave. We've all been spoiled by autosave in Google Docs and other places. If you go away from a story you're working on, if you navigate away from it, it's just gone and you're starting over. So save changes periodically. When you save changes, it'll bring you back to the items menu and you'll click on edit again. So here's a file up at Manitou Park, and you can see this. And once you bring this up, there's three items that you'll need for each photograph. One is a title, and this can be a simple descriptive thing, Manitou Park. Then a description. The description is actually your caption. A caption is an opportunity to tell a little story, to draw the reader's eye to something interesting. It shouldn't just be, this is a postcard of Manitou Park. So here I put Manitou Park in 1900 was overrun by giant bees. That's a forgotten aspect of Spokane history. And then the source, where the image came from. And you should write, and I didn't do here, image courtesy of. That's our language in Spokane Historical. Image courtesy of and where you came from. Copyright is a concern. Make sure you know what the copyright rules are and that what you're using is free of copyright or that you have the permission of the copyright holder. Respect other people's intellectual property. And that's it. Those are the 3 fields we use here. The others we do not. I'm going to go ahead and click on Save Changes. I want to point out another interesting feature here in Spokane Historical. So at this point, you're starting to get your photographs in, you've got your story in, you're pretty excited. What's it going to look like when it goes public? If you're a student in one of my classes, the permission level you have doesn't allow you to publish the Spokane Historical. Let me explain. You're adding content to the database, you're saving it, but it doesn't appear on the public website until somebody with an editor function looks it over and makes sure it's good and it's ready to go. But you can use this button, View Public Page, to see what it would look like. So in this case, it's just bringing us to that photograph. I should go back. Okay, very good. Close out of here. So that's Dublin Core, so your title and your name goes. Item type metadata is where most of your text goes. Files is where you put the photographs. And notice here, beside here, you can drag these files up and down. So that comes in handy sometimes. And then there's tags. We don't use tags, so in Spokane Historical, so don't worry about that. Finally, the last of these tabs is Map. Where are you going to tell your story? This one easy. It's about the John R. Monahan statue. So we're going to drop that pin right on top of the John R. Monahan statue. You can zoom in and click, and there you go. You can also here enter a street address if you have one, and it'll auto-locate it that way. You drop the pin in the wrong place, no problem. Click somewhere else. You get a little pop-up. Are you sure you want to change the location of this? Okay. There you go. And then you'll go ahead and View Public Page. And there we go. John R. Monahan statue. Now, I'm going to go back and change this because I've got this picture of Manitou Park that I put in there for training purposes, let's say. That's not actually appropriate for this story. So that's about all there is to it. Remember to click Save. Remember not to plagiarize. Remember to have copyright. And remember to write to the public in an interesting and engaging way. I look forward to reading your stories. Thank you.